I never thought I'd be filming this video from our shared kitchen, but here we are. If you're new here, I'm Alex, and that's Mia making coffee in the background. Yes, the same Mia who once told me to get lost when I offered her a place to stay. Before I tell you how we ended up as roommates, hit that like button and subscribe if you believe in second chances. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why sometimes the most unexpected decisions lead to the most beautiful outcomes. 3 months ago, I was just another face in apartment 4B, exchanging polite nods with neighbors in the hallway. I knew Mia from 4D only through brief elevator conversations and the occasional package I'd collect when she was working late shifts at the hospital. She was a pediatric nurse with kind eyes that looked perpetually tired, but she always managed a smile when we crossed paths. Our building wasn't anything special, just another aging complex in a neighborhood that was rapidly gentrifying. The rent increases had been steady but manageable until Westside Development Corporation bought the property. Within weeks, notices appeared under everyone's doors announcing essential renovations and rent hikes that would effectively price out half the residents. I was fortunate. My tech job had given me a raise that same month, and while the new rent would stretch my budget uncomfortably thin, I could manage. Others weren't so lucky. The elderly couple on the first floor moved in with their daughter. The college students in 3C packed 6 people into a 2-bedroom across town. And then there was Mia. I first realized something was wrong when I heard muffled crying through our shared wall one evening. It wasn't my business, but something about the desperation in those sobs made me knock on her door with a flimsy excuse about borrowing sugar. When she opened the door, her eyes were red-rimmed, and she was clutching an eviction notice. The hospital had cut back her hours, and with student loans already eating half her income, the new rent was impossible. She had 30 days to find a new place in a city where affordable housing was as rare as rain in a desert. I've applied to 15 apartments, she said, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her scrubs. Either I don't make enough, or there are 50 other applicants, or they want a deposit I can't afford. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was seeing someone who dedicated her life to helping sick children facing homelessness. Maybe it was simple human decency. Or maybe it was because my 2-bedroom apartment felt too empty since my sister moved out. Move in with me, I said. Her laugh was sharp and humorless. That's not funny, Alex. I'm not joking. I have an extra bedroom. You need a place to stay. We barely know each other. Her voice was guarded, suspicious. People don't just offer their homes to strangers. We're not strangers. We're neighbors. And soon we'll be roommates. She closed the door in my face. For the next week, I respected her space. But when I saw her in the hallway struggling with boxes, clearly starting to pack, I tried again. This time, I came prepared. I handed her a folder containing a reasonable roommate agreement, a breakdown of shared expenses that would cost her less than half her current rent, and a set of spare keys. I meant it, I said simply. She stared at the keys in her palm. Why would you do this? I didn't have a perfect answer. Because I can. Because it makes sense. Because nobody should lose their home when there's an empty room next door. That night, we talked for hours. She told me about growing up in foster care, about working 3 jobs to put herself through nursing school, about the children on her ward who fought so bravely against illnesses they couldn't understand. I told her about my sister who had moved across the country, about my parents who had died too young, about the emptiness of coming home to an apartment where my voice echoed. I still think you're crazy, she said finally. But if you're serious, I accept. Moving her in took one afternoon. She had so little, just clothes, books, nursing supplies, and a few cherished photos. The spare bedroom had been gathering dust since my sister left, and seeing it filled with Mia's things gave the whole apartment a renewed sense of purpose. The adjustment wasn't seamless. She worked night shifts 3 days a week, and I learned to tiptoe around the apartment during daylight hours. I was messy, she was meticulous. I cooked with reckless creativity, she followed recipes to the letter. We established boundaries, compromised on the thermostat setting, and gradually found our rhythm. What I didn't expect was how quickly she would become essential to my life. After years of living alone or with family, I'd forgotten the comfort of sharing space with someone who wasn't obligated to care about you but chose to anyway. She noticed when I was stressed about work and left encouraging notes on the refrigerator. I learned to stock her favorite tea and have it ready when she returned from particularly difficult shifts. 6 weeks after she moved in, disaster struck. The hospital announced another round of cutbacks, and Mia's hours were reduced again. I found her at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her laptop, searching for second jobs. "I can't make rent this month," she said, her voice hollow. "I should start looking for somewhere else." "No," I said firmly. "We'll figure it out." That night, I created a YouTube channel. I'd always been interested in storytelling, and my job in digital marketing had taught me enough about video production to get started. Our first video was simple, just me talking about our housing situation, the crisis of affordable housing in our city, and how two strangers had become unlikely roommates. To our shock, it resonated. Comments poured in from people facing similar situations, from healthcare workers struggling to make ends meet despite their essential work, from people who had opened their homes to others in need. By the end of the week, we had enough subscribers and views to qualify for monetization. Mia was reluctant to appear on camera at first, but eventually, she agreed to join me for a video about her experiences as a pediatric nurse. Her stories about the children she cared for, told with compassion and respect for their privacy, touched thousands of viewers. Soon, we were creating content together regularly, sharing our daily lives, discussing healthcare and housing issues, and building a community around our unexpected friendship. 3 months later, the channel was generating enough income to cover Mia's portion of the rent until the hospital restored her hours. But by then, our arrangement had evolved into something neither of us wanted to end. The real turning point came during a severe snowstorm that shut down the city. Mia had been working for 20 hours straight as the hospital struggled with reduced staff. When she finally made it home, exhausted and freezing, I had prepared her favorite meal and set up a makeshift movie theater in our living room. As we sat wrapped in blankets, watching old comedies and sharing stories, she turned to me with tears in her eyes. "You know, when you first offered to let me move in, I thought you had ulterior motives," she admitted. "I've spent my whole life waiting for the catch, for people to reveal what they really want from me." "And now?" I asked. "Now I know some people just do good things because they can. Because that's who they are." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being that person when I needed one most." Our channel continued to grow, evolving beyond our roommate story to address broader issues of community support, healthcare worker advocacy, and the housing crisis. We interviewed other essential workers struggling with housing, collaborated with affordable housing nonprofits, and even testified at city council meetings about tenant protections. 6 months after Mia moved in, Westside Development Corporation announced they were selling our building to a nonprofit housing trust that would maintain affordable rents for current residents. The local news covered the story, mentioning our channel's role in bringing attention to the issue. That night, we celebrated with takeout and cheap champagne, marveling at how much had changed. "Do you ever regret it?" Mia asked as we clinked glasses. "Letting me move in?" I thought about the late-night conversations, the shared meals, the way we'd learned to anticipate each other's needs, the community we'd built together. Not for a second. Even when I use all the hot water? Even then. We both knew she could afford her own place now. The hospital had not only restored her hours but promoted her to charge nurse. Our channel was generating steady income. There were options. But neither of us mentioned them. Instead, we renewed our lease together. We painted the living room a warm yellow that Mia chose. I built bookshelves that accommodated both her medical texts and my science fiction novels. We adopted a cat from the shelter and named him Chance. So that's how I ended up here, filming this update from our kitchen while Mia makes coffee in the background. What started as an impulsive offer to a neighbor in crisis has become the most meaningful relationship in my life. We're not just roommates anymore, we're family we chose for ourselves. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your door when someone needs shelter. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply making room in your life for another person's struggle. And sometimes, the family you need is just on the other side of the wall, waiting for you to knock. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. We're still here, still advocating for affordable housing and healthcare worker support, still figuring out how to be good roommates and better humans. And we'd love for you to join us on this journey. Because in a world that can feel increasingly isolated, the simple act of saying, "Move in with me," and meaning it might be the most powerful connection we can offer each other.